So we've got a very exciting lineup today. I'll come on to what that looks like in a moment. But just before we start, I'll just give a couple of introductions. So the team who run this public sector user group, so it's made up of myself. So anyone who's been to one of these before might know, but I'm James Goodall. I'm the analytics support specialist and I work for Surrey County Council. And the guy, the co-lead who I run this with, Mike Henry, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but Mike works for Kirklees Council and he's the head of intelligence. So we started speaking a couple of years ago about the need to kind of start sharing data in a public sector environment, and kind of this is the fruits of that labour. So we've had quite a few meetups quite a few virtual meetups and one in-person meetup since we started. But we're on to 2021. So what we've got for you today, we've got three great speakers coming up. Starting off, we're going to be hearing from Danny Bradley and Martin Pryor over at London North Eastern Railway, who will be talking to us about their kind of journey over the last year, how they coped with COVID in the rail sector. And then we'll have, after each speaker, we'll have a Q&A session. So you might notice at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box. Feel free to use that to chat to each other, to say hello. But there's another box called Q&A down at the bottom of your screens. So if you have any questions for the presenters, please feel free to drop them in there. That's where we'll be looking. You can drop them anytime throughout the presentation. You don't need to wait until the end. So if something pops into your mind, ask the question and we'll come to it at the end. After that first presentation, we'll be handing over to Eric Mahendren. So Eric and I both work in the same team at Surrey County Council, and Eric will be talking to you about a piece of work that he did around building a web data connector for coronavirus data. And then as before, we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. And following that, we'll be handing over to Dipesh. Dipesh works for Tableau, and he'll be showing you some of the new features in 2020.4, specifically around map layers. So I think that's everything from me. I'm going to hand over to Danny and Martin. As I say, they work for London North Eastern Railway, but I'm sure you'll hear all about that in a moment. So yeah, Danny and Martin, welcome.
Great, thank you very much for having us. We've got a few slides to show you today. I think I'm just going to have it to Danny, who's just going to do us a quick intro, and then we'll head through the slides. We've got some interesting things to hopefully we'll be able to show you.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today to come and listen to our little presentation we've put together on being data-driven through COVID at LNER. I'm Danny Bradley. For those of you who don't know, I'm a business analysis manager at LNER, and I've been here a year yesterday. So it's been COVID, unfortunately, for the most part, with all of the data we've been pulling together, with the odd exception here and there. So that's me. Martin's going to talk you through the first few slides, and then I'll be taking you through some other slides, and then we're going to be showing you some of our Tableau dashboards that we've built just to aid the business in better understanding our very rapid change in situation as a company. So I'll hand back to Martin to introduce himself and take you through a couple of slides.
Hi, I'm Martin Pryor. I'm head of analytics at LNER. I've been here since Virgin Trains East Coast days. So I came over from Stagecoach in about 2016. Before that, my kind of background is around rail demand and revenue forecasting. I've done that since sort of early 2000s, sort of consultancy world and for public sector in different talks. So my background is sort of forecasting, but very, very much interested in data and how data can help us kind of plan and do better things for the railway. So just a bit of a background on what LNER is. So for those who don't know, we run the trains from King's Cross in London. We run kind of two routes, so the Anglo-Scot route, which goes to Edinburgh, and the West Yorkshire route, which goes to this kind of Leeds area. We've got 21 million passengers in a normal year. This isn't a normal year, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we're not going to get anywhere close to that this year. About 3,000 staff. So out of King's Cross, we run about 5 trains an hour. And with all the engineering works and all the new trains, hopefully next year we will be able to expand that to about 6.5 trains an hour. So a big increase in capacity coming up for everybody. So that equates at the moment to about 150 trains per day. So if you compare that to sort of South West Trains going to Waterloo, we don't run that many trains compared to them, but we are very much a kind of a long distance TOC train company, sorry. And we run about 65 of our new Zuma trains. I don't know if some of you have seen them out and about now. We've got 65 of those running up and down the route. So we've got a mixture of 5 cars, 9 cars, electric stock and bi-mode stock, which hopefully over the next few years we'll really start to see a revitalisation of this route, along with the new routes we've got opening up as well. So that's us. This is our team. So I've introduced myself and Danny. So we've set ourselves up in around sort of 2016, 2017 time, and we've been growing ever since. We started off with effectively 1 person with a spreadsheet in commercial. This person was getting inundated with questions, trying to answer them with his spreadsheet, and there was a lot of frustration. I think we've probably all kind of been there in that kind of Excel hell. Moving on from there, we bought Tableau desktop and connected it to that Excel spreadsheet to start with, and immediately we were getting new answers, new insights, which we were pushing out to the business. We quickly realized that Tableau server was probably the way to go to kind of push things out and build that self-serve kind of culture, and that grew really quickly. We grew to kind of 200 users pretty quickly across the business, with licenses going from the exec team all the way down to frontline managers. That's kind of where we are now. So from there, we've now recruited 3 business analysis managers, and every part of the business has someone in our team that is their kind of point of contact for analytics. So Danny in a minute will talk you through some of the performance stuff he's doing with train lateness and customer experience. James deals with the people team, some of the people data. There's lots of really interesting stuff there. And around COVID, that's been central to understanding absence and planning for when we did ramp the surface back up. How many staff were we going to have? How many people were on long-term sick or shielding from COVID and things like that? So that's been really central to planning around the win back over the last summer. Rob deals with the train planning and loadings data, and I can show you some of his dashboards later. Mike deals with commercial, and then we also do market research and our customer satisfaction surveys and things like that. So there's lots of stats coming out of there. And then we also do forecasting as well. So we've got quite a big kind of team that's grown. We've got 2 data schoolers here. So these are Tableau Information Lab data schoolers. So Sarah's just left us. We've still got Joe Stokes with us. And I will actually be talking you through one of Joe Stokes's dashboards, one of our Winbuck dashboards in a minute. So I will admit that I have not built these dashboards. These are other people's work, but I will say that that's their work. So this is our story for the last year. So this is searches across the LNER website last summer, or last year. So starting in March, this is normal up here, and we very, very quickly lost people on the website and therefore customers on our trains. And lockdown began, I remember, everybody on the 24th of March. So we were already losing people on board at that point. We then really kind of stagnated around this point. And what we've done here is this updates every day, really, and we add in various points and things that have been kind of going on through the year. And this is a picture that's kind of grown as we've headed through the win back over the summer, and then back through the autumn, through the various lockdowns, through the tiers. And that's really then helped us to forecast going forward, because we kind of know what it kind of feels like to be in tier 3, tier 2, a lockdown, and various things. So you can see here that we released a lot of summer dates on the 17th of July, and that spurred a lot of traffic on our website and planning for the summer. We then were very busy over the August period, and then in the autumn when things started to come off again, as cases started to come back, more restrictions were added in, and things like that. So here you can see we released our Christmas travel dates, which immediately spurred a lot of traffic and a lot of sales. Unfortunately, when it came to the 19th of December announcement that Christmas was cancelled, we then got a lot of cancellations come through. So we were tracking that and making sure that the finance teams were aware of that, because we need to make sure that we got the right cash flow and things like that. So there's lots of planning ahead that these dashboards have really helped us to do. I'll now hand over to Danny, who's going to talk you through some of the use cases.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, so although we didn't really have very many people on our trains, our team became busier than ever. All of our managers are stuck at home, and our stats really became the eyes and ears of the business, because people weren't getting out onto the route, and there was more information available than ever before. So it really was and still is the busiest we've ever been as an analytics team, and we are continuing to grow as a team through this period, and it's it's certainly been challenging. Next slide, please, Martin. So there was this sudden thirst for our data, and we were getting over and above the standard questions that you would get. We were just getting tons and tons of questions from lots and lots of different people. So some of the things that we were asked were, how many refunds are being processed? Are we making any money at all? And what is the forecast? And Martin and our forecasting analyst Ben have done multiple reforecasts, I think, given the quick changing situation. So that's certainly been a challenge. People want to know which trains are busy, which trains are not, potentially reducing services, which we have done in certain places at certain times. A big element of it was around staff sickness and staff well-being. And as Martin alluded to there, James, who's our people HR analyst manager, was very involved in working with the people team to get them lots of information as well. And some of the work he did was, all of the work he did was fantastic, but super valuable. And also there was lots of questions asked around one of the areas that I look after, which is the customer experience area. We obviously still did have people traveling on our trains. We've got those key workers who needed to get to work, who potentially needed to get public transport. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing as much as we could for the customer, regardless of the situation that we were in as a business and the country was in. So there was lots and lots of questions around our customers getting the right onboard experience. And obviously things like offering food and drinks and catering and all of that sort of thing on our trains, which we did and do so well. A lot of that kind of had to go out of the window, and we had to really put our heads together and think of different ways to do that. So there was so many questions coming from the business. Not only were questions coming from the business, but we were getting questions from the Department for Transport, the British Transport Police, wanting to get some information and data from us. We've got a contact centre up in Gateshead there, so there was lots of information around that, and you'll see that as part of the COVID dashboard that I'm going to show you that I created. Lots of questions around calls relating to COVID and complaints and all of that sort of thing. So that's included. The frontline managers were asking us more questions than ever before and wanting a lot of information. And lots of other people there that you can see on that list, train planning and fleet teams, pricing teams. Again, talked about catering. There was lots of work around catering done, and trying to revise our offers and things like that of the food that we could serve. So yeah, we were always busy, I guess, right, Martin? But this just elevated it to a whole other stratosphere that we really hadn't seen before. Next slide, please. So Tableau and Alteryx, we are lucky enough to have both pieces of software in the business, did really play a crucial role in that. So at LNER, we do have Tableau and Alteryx. We've got Tableau desktop and Tableau server, and we've also got Alteryx desktop licenses creators, and we've got Alteryx server as well, which is hosted by Till. We've grown, as Martin said, in the last 2 or 3 years. And even more so in the last year since I've been here, really, with lots more people getting involved. And I'll talk about that in a second. But we've currently got 29 creator licenses for Tableau and 300 server viewer licenses. And those 300 end users have certainly come to us with lots of interesting questions, as you've seen. And we've now got 18 desktop licenses for Alteryx as well. And as I mentioned there, we've got Alteryx Server. So it's always really important for, for us to get across to our end users about just how important Alteryx plays in the part of this and being able to churn our data quite quickly. And we've definitely utilized Tableau's stack to its full potential as well, given the new way in which we've started collating some of our data through Microsoft Stack and Microsoft Forms and things like that, getting critical information from the front line into our systems. So we've been using quite a bit of, we've been using Tableau Prep as well, where we've had some network limitations. Tableau Prep's really helped us there as well. And it's all well and good having the software, which is, you know, an absolute bonus to have. But what I've been working on over the last year is building up a real analytics community throughout the business. So what we've done is create some Teams groups and just trying to basically give everybody who works in data a real, get them really involved in our team and bring them into our sort of analytics and Tableau and Alteryx fold and get them involved in everything that we do and get them talking to each other and really get some buy-in at that level. And that's proven really successful. We now run sessions every day pretty much. So we do Makeover Monday every week. So on a Monday, we have a 15-minute call just to review the data and go over the visualization. We give them till the Friday where they present back, and that's going really well. And it's really elevating some people's skills throughout the business. The reason that we've done that is because we, as an analytics team, like I said already, we've never been so busy, and we just literally didn't have the time to do every piece of work that was given to us. So what I wanted to do was find the people throughout the business who were already building visualizations, whether that be in Tableau or in Excel or any other piece of software, and give them some training on Tableau. We ran a couple of 2-day fundamental training sessions for that. We bring them into our fold and kind of mark them up as data champions for their area. So they've got a direct link to us, and it's proving really, really successful. We've had teams, you know, like our audit teams have started delivering things in Tableau, and their findings reports are going into Tableau, which is a huge win for us. We've just brought on the finance team, so we're starting to do a lot of expenditure reporting as well through Tableau, and it's really picking up a lot of traction. Yeah, so Makeover Monday has been really, really key in that and getting people's skills up. That's exactly how I learned to use Tableau, so it was only right to put that into the business. And then we do other things as well. So we'll do Tableau training Tuesdays. We're doing Alteryx Wednesdays, where we'll look at individual tools in Alteryx and dig right into exactly how they work. And then on Thursdays, we do another session called Dig That Viz, where we'll pick out, we ask all our participants to have a look at each of the, look on Tableau Public for a viz that they like and something they might want to take from it. We download that viz and then we pick it apart and see how it's been built. So all of those sessions together have really started forming the basis of a really decent analytics community within the business. Martin, next slide. Okay, so those are the questions. That's our team and the tools that we use. So I think it's probably about time that we show you some Tableau. So I'm going to hand back to Martin now. He's going to take you through the win-back dashboard and the loadings dashboard. And then I'll take you through a new performance dashboard that we've been creating, and also a COVID-19 reporting center as well. So Martin, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Danny. So just refreshing this, I want to show this from our Tableau server. So hopefully you can see the Tableau server on the screen now. So we'll just go full screen. So this is our win-back dashboard. So this was built by Joe Stokes, who is one of the data schoolers on loan to us. What we needed with this dashboard was to really keep track of people who are searching on our website. So there's a need to really keep track of the bookings that might be coming down the line, so that our teams can prepare, can get the pricing right, can get the onboard service right, So here for this is refreshed obviously for yesterday's data, February the 1st. You can see we're down in lockdown here, so we're not got a lot coming through. But as we start to open up through the spring, we'll see it first here. We'll see who's coming on the website, who's searching, and what flows they're searching for, so that we can then look ahead to that. The next one I want to show you is our bookings. So there's a few things in here. So this is bookings coming through into our revenue management system. So looking ahead, so this is today, and then looking back over the last few weeks, you can see that. It then also gives us a bit of a forecast. At the moment, it uses 2 weeks worth of data to forecast forward. It should use 2 or 3 years, but the last 2 or 3 years just aren't any good really. So it's a rolling kind of 2 or 3 weeks that helps us forecast forward. So the pink is the forecast, and then the actual bookings are down here in the dark red. So there's not a lot kind of coming through as you'd expect and as you'd hope because of adherence to lockdown. But again, we can see here that these are the load factors, so the number of seats that we're selling on board in the next few weeks. And this has been really useful for our marketing teams to see what's coming up, what's in our horizon. So we hope to release seats 12 weeks before departure so that customers can plan ahead. But then that also allows our marketing teams to make sure that they are seeing what's coming through. And underneath here, you can see the days in the horizon, so the next 14 days and time periods through those days. So we can see where there's spare capacity. And again, the marketing teams and our CRM teams are going in here through the win-back period to see where there might be some space to sell extra tickets. And then you can kind of push those through email and push marketing. The next one I want to show you is our bookings dashboard. So this uses RAS data. So RAS is our new booking reservation system for the rail industry, revenue industry-wide. So this pulls in bookings from last night. So it takes a run of data from last night. So this is up to date for today. And what we're trying to do here was to show. So this is for King's Cross. The orange is departing King's Cross, and then the arrivals are in the blue. So this has been really useful for our station teams to be able to go in here every morning and see which periods of the day are likely to be busy. And also down here we've got the trains. So for this train here, it leaves King's Cross at 5:55 this morning. It had a capacity of 252. Which is about half of our normal capacity. So we've got reduced capacity to ensure social distancing on board. And on that train, we'd sold, as of last night, 7 tickets for that train. So it's a very lightly loaded train. It should be possible to socially distance on that train. But this was really useful, especially around the Christmas period, to make sure that the right numbers of staff were on the platforms to assist customers at the right times. And they can go in here and they can select a station. So we've got the full list of stations here. So this one was built by Rob Taylor, who's been working with our RAS data. And one of the little things he's added in here is that this is in the order of the route, which is quite a nice little touch. The other thing we've added in here is a feedback form. So this you can click on here, and this takes you through to a form. This is something that we've been adding over the last few weeks, but in here then you can give feedback on the form. You add in the URL. You can see what you like about the dashboard, what you think needs to be improved, and then submit that. So it's quite a nice way for people to go in and see, just if they've seen anything wrong with the dashboard or some stuff that they want updated, and that's all in there. So now I'll hand back to Danny, who is going to show you some of the other stuff that he's been doing with the performance team.
Thank you, Martin. I will just share my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, just checking you can all see that. Thanks, Martin. Great. So this is something that we've released quite recently, and this is our new look at our train performance. So when we talk about performance in the business, generally speaking, it's always train performance. So how on time are our trains? How delayed are our trains? How many cancellations have we got? And historically, this was done in a PDF format by one of the performance team, Sue, who did an absolutely cracking job of not only creating that reporting but maintaining it as well. And she's now one of our data champions, and I've given her Tableau training, and she's then helped a lot with this as well. So just to give you a quick run through of it, what we're seeing here is, as with any typical Tableau dashboard, is starting at a high level and then being able to drill into the detail where people want it. So we've got the data selector at the top here, just fairly simple. If we change any date, it will change it, all of these measures here, which I'll take you through in a second. If there's any commentary to add, any certain incidents that have happened throughout the route which might have resulted in a poor on time or PPM score, then the commentary would be added into here, and that's added in dynamically as well. So when you change the date, the commentary changes. And what we've got is this, what we were trying to do here was get across the main key figures without it being too complicated. So what we've got here is on time, which is the percentage of time that our trains arrived at or before the time scheduled at each station on the route. And we were conscious that there was probably about 400 people that were getting this reporting, and not all of those people were used to Tableau. So we wanted to make sure that we had explanations for everything. So if you hover over any of these, it will give you the explanation of the measure. We've got these nice bands here, just giving you exactly what happened and the percentages, and versus target or versus period to date, depending on what you're looking at. And then what we've got here is just the historical trend. So what we have is, although we are using green and red in the same visualization, which is a bit of a no-no for me personally. However, after some discussions, it was deemed okay given our audience. So we've gotten through that. But what you can do here is we've got this reference line here, so we can see if it's above or below target really easily. And on this one, for instance, here, you can see that we've actually not hit our PPM, which is the percentage of times trains were within 10 minutes at their terminating station. So we haven't hit that for 4 days. And you hover over it and it just gives you a bit more information. We've also got these positive and negative indicators, whether that's period to date. And the indicators to the left here, they're actually telling us whether it's up or down versus period to date. Hamburger menu options. So what we can do is click on these, and this will only work for this area here. But what we can actually do now is split that out by our regions, because we've got different regional heads looking after things, want to see just things for their area. So you're able to drill right down to region, specific stations, the direction of travel, and also if we want to search for a specific train that ran a specific head code, we can do that. I'm not going to show you that now. But yeah, if you change any of that, then obviously all of this will change accordingly. There's slightly different options on some of them, but that was a nice touch to be able to get that drill down level of detail. So the next thing, the next question that the end user would always ask is, well, why is my on time lower than it should be, or my PPM? So we've included this incidents section here. So this will default to show the top 10 incidents, and that is sorted by the actual cancellations and then the delay minutes. So there's lots of information in here. It's this kind of a table view, but at a high level, you can see how many primary delay minutes there were and how many reactionary delay minutes there were based off of these different incidents. It's giving you a bit of a explanation as to what that is, and also a bit more of a plain English explanation on the tooltip there as well. We're splitting it out as well. It's color coded. So we've got LNER in the red, network rail in the gray, and TOC on TOC on the orange. And again, we can filter these if we want to. Just look at ourselves, for instance, for yesterday. This is yesterday's data. It'll just filter to just ourselves. That's proven really, really useful. And one of the main remits of this was to stop a lot of questions going into the performance team. And we are now starting to see those performance questions come down. And then the final the final section here is station dwell. So that's how long our trains are being held at the stations. And we've got this split out. We've got the actuals here in the green, or red if it's not performing against target. And then we've got the gray, which is the actual target here as well. And you hover over that and it gives you a trend over the period. And we've also got some set actions built into here, which Joe Stokes built for us in here. and you can click on any of these sections, and then it's going to drill into the north because I've clicked on north, and it's going to split that out by the station. It's going to give us an absolute ton of information, and then you can just drill back out of it. So it's really, really good for our end users to be able to pinpoint exactly where we've got pinch points along the route when it comes to dwell. So that's our new performance reporting that we've had a lot of fun building. And the second thing that I'm going to show you is our just checking, has that changed over, Martin? Yeah, perfect. So this is our COVID-19 reporting center, as it were. And I'm going to just keep it in desktop for a minute. What I've had to do is omit some of this for confidentiality reasons, but I'm going to just talk you through each of them really quickly. So the idea of this was this remit came from the exec team, and they wanted to be able to see all of their key metrics in one place. And these were the things that were decided upon so we could track them during the COVID pandemic. And this is still being used today. It gets updated weekly. Some key factors to this are that we've got exactly where the data is taken from or who supplies us with the data. So we've got a point of contact for each measure, and also when the data was last updated. What you'll see on some of these as well are these little arrows. And what that means is that this is a high level view of something that's happened. And what we've actually got is that if you click on any of these arrows, it'll take you to a specific drill down or a specific dashboard that already exists within Tableau on our Tableau server. So we've got stuff here looking at revenue, and this is trends looking at last year versus this year. You hover over it and it will give you lots of extra information, although it's blanked out for the purposes of this presentation. There's lots of information in there. Tracking refunds was obviously very, very important, especially given the quick announcements by the government. So that was something that was in there as well. We're wanting to look at our future bookings. So this is the future bookings for the next 6 weeks. No great surprise there that we haven't got many bookings over the next 6 weeks. Hopefully that'll pick up again soon. So these were the financial areas, and then we've got the cost savings and a few other things here. And what we were really trying to do with this dashboard, and I'll just keep scrolling through, is use lots of different visualization techniques to really get the message across really clearly at a high level to the right audience, but then be able to drill down into the detail where required. So we've got other things here relating to the customer. So we've got our average loadings and how many people are on our trains, some brand sentiment and some scoring here as well. We've got a little bit around our customer contacts, and I mentioned this earlier around how many people actually calling us in relation to COVID and their concerns around that. We've got some complaints tracking there. There was a big focus on cleaning, obviously. I've had to omit the data, but there was some cleaning hours in there split up between some different areas. And then moving on to the operational, we've got the absence position. Obviously, clinically extremely vulnerable is very high at the moment, given the latest lockdown restrictions from the government. And then some on-time stuff as well. So similar to the stuff we've just looked at, high-level tracking of what's our on-time performance and how many services are running versus how many services were planned to run. And I'll just keep scrolling down. I'm not going to go through all of these now, but it was just basically having a bit of fun with it as well, and pushing the business a little bit further into a little bit more advanced visualizations, things like slope charts, which we use here for the employee NAS scores, really did help get the message across. Some food donations there where we had surplus catering orders, and we've donated those to charities. So really a simple view, this tiled view, quite business-like, however, just tried to get some really insightful information into that as well. So that's it. I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks everybody for listening. It's certainly been quite a journey at LNER, and one that I don't think is going to stop over the next 6 to 12 months at least. And if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to give us a shout. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you both, Danny and Martin. Really interesting presentations there. Yeah, really cool seeing your story and seeing the outputs of what some of those effects had. I think there was a comment, in fact there's a couple of comments in the chat there just about some lovely dashboard design there, and I'd echo that sentiment. Really clean, really nice to look at. We have got quite a few questions dropped in the chat, so we'll try and go through as many of them as we can. Obviously, if we don't get around to doing all of them, I can pass those questions on to you guys, and you can answer them either in the chat or outside of here. So first one we'll go with come from Peter. He asks, do you have any evidence that the self-serve options you've created on Tableau server has deflected some of the work from you?
I think what we have started doing recently is really tracking the usage of all of our Tableau dashboards. So that's kind of one of the key drivers for us completing work. Now, you can obviously get into your Postgres and get your information out of there. And what we've very recently started doing, apart from having conversations with people, so that I think that's probably alluding to the performance dashboards. The performance stuff for us, it was literally one or two people in a team that were getting sort of bombarded with questions, and it's definitely not got to the level that we want it to yet. But we certainly think that, and if anything, when you're going through a big change in reporting and dashboards, especially people coming from PDF over to interactivity and Tableau, it probably creates more questions initially. So that's why supporting Sue in the performance team and giving her as much training and support as she needs has been really crucial to the success of it. It's definitely still in an early phase. We know we've been running it about 4 weeks now. We're actually taking the approach of parallel running the reporting with the current stuff that Sue does, just to alleviate any concerns. And there has been some questions, and there's been some things that we've ironed out as we've gone through it. But I think the main thing for me about making sure that people are, we are sort of finishing, stopping the questions going into the teams is tracking the usage. That's the main thing. What we have just started doing, Rob Taylor, who built some of the dashboards you've seen there, built a template which we're now starting to implement into every dashboard we publish, so that the end users of those dashboards can actually see who's using it. So it's not just consigned to the analytics team and about us tracking it. It's about pushing that onto the end user so they can see exactly who's using it from their end as well.
Yeah, I think it's about, one question always leads to another question, and if you're waiting a week for your first question to be answered, then you don't get to the next questions. So I think we're finding that the questions that are coming to us are probably maybe a bit more complicated, need a bit more input from our team, but they wouldn't have got to that place if they hadn't had the dashboards there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fantastic. So I hope that answers your question, Peter. So just picking out another one, because this jumped out at me because I thought exactly the same thing as well. Loving the idea of a feedback form. I think this is one that you presented, Martin.
Yeah.
And so Gary there was just wondering, what's the uptake and usage of this function, and how is it resourced for responding to or updating the dashboards?
Yeah, it's something we've rolled out probably in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks as we've got these new templates out. So it's still kind of early days. We probably had sort of 3 or 4 responses so far, but we're trying to, whenever we present a new dashboard, it's there, making sure people are aware that it's there.
Yeah.
What it does is it pushes into, it's a Microsoft form, but we've got I think we've got a Power Automate that then pushes an alert into our team, so that anyone in our team could then pick that up, so that we can respond, almost within the same day. I would have thought.
Okay.
But we don't
fantastic.
have an SLA that we do that. It's we pick it up.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. No, that's really interesting. Right, so I think we've got time for one more. So I'll pick one from Chris, who submitted a couple of questions. One of them he asked is there a cutover point between having paginated stories and very lengthy stories? So I think that refers to the dashboard design in terms of kind of long scrolling versus going across. I think, Chris, although pipe up in the chat if I'm wrong.
No, I think it's a really fair question. I think for me, yes, it's a long form dashboard in the traditional sense. However, it's definitely different to that storytelling, right? So we're not starting off at this high level point of this is what's happening and we're tracking down on that individual dashboard. I think it is a place to see all of the key metrics in a really clear and concise way, and then they can drill through into it from there. I definitely, we thought so long and hard about the layout of that dashboard and exactly how we wanted to visualize every single element, that it was I mean, for me, it was probably the first thing I did when I came into the business a year ago. So it certainly was a challenge. And I think not, for want of a better phrase, not trying to, not boring people with it, but in trying to keep them engaged. I think picking the right chart types was a key part of that, right? Like you've got to pick the thing that keeps people engaged. If we'd have put on there, I don't know how many elements are on there. I've not actually counted. I think it might have started off as a few more. So say it was 20 elements. That breaks all of my dashboard rules, right? No more than 5 or 6 elements on a dashboard. But, having the sections there between financial and customer, people can track to it really easily and focus on what they want to. And then, having the same color schemes throughout everything, again, it certainly made me think a lot about what do I think are my Viz rules, because it broke so many of them. But it did it in the right way, I think. So it's okay to break the rules. I think it's certainly a one-off. I've never created anything like it before, and I'm not sure I'd create anything like it again, because you want to answer specific business questions with your data, right? It's just that one was give me everything, and that was the best way we could kind of think to do it. Yeah.
Well, no, as kind of the feedback in the chat goes, I think you did a pretty good job of that. So, yeah, it looks really clear. I think it was pretty clear about what points you're trying to get across in that. Fantastic. So yeah, so there were a couple of unanswered questions, but I think we need to move on to our second presenter of the day. So we can try and take those questions offline. But yeah, no, thank you very much, Martin and Danny. Really interesting talk.
Thanks, James.
Cheers. So coming up next, we've got Eric Mahendren. So Eric works alongside me at Surrey County Council, and he's going to talk to you, as I said, about a piece of work that mainly he did on producing a web data connector in Tableau. So yeah, over to you, Eric, if you wanted to share your screen.
Sure. Right, is everyone able to see that?
Yeah, we got you.
Fantastic. Okay, so thanks a lot, James. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name's Eric, and I'm going to go through the coronavirus web data connector that James and I put together at the end of last year. So just to give everyone a bit of background, we had a number of pre-existing automated processes in place to gather COVID data, but they were only available to Surrey County Council staff. We wanted to look at exposing data to a wider audience. So we started investigating how to create a web data connector. But what we needed was a use case, right? And at this stage, we knew that we wanted to do something with web data connectors, but we didn't have a use case. So we waited until something presented itself. So when the BBC and Tableau got in contact, we jumped to that opportunity. Our goal was that we wanted it to be as quick and easy to use for our end users, whilst being able to give them all the information that they needed to be able to analyze the data in Tableau. So before I go any further, I'm just going to quickly show you how you can grab this data manually from the official government website. So first off, we navigate over to the site and then select download data from the left-hand pane. From here, we can select the area type. So notice how we can only select one area type at a time. And then we can select a specific area or leave it blank to get all areas from that selected area type. I'm just going to select England in this instance. Then we can select the metrics that we're interested in. Notice again how we can only select up to 5 different metrics at any given time. I'm just going to try and get up to that magic 5 number. Great. Okay, so and then finally we can download our data in the selected format and see the output. So as you can see, this is a very manual process where we're able to get the data, which is great, but it's only valid at the time that we downloaded it. And if we wanted to get the data again tomorrow, we'd have to go back and download the data. Great. So before I dive into the what and the how, I think it'll be useful to go through what a web data connector is. Simply put, a web data connector is another data source. They allow you to connect directly to APIs over the internet. Also, they also do all the pre-processing for you on the fly. So what you're left with as an end user is just a table that you're able to interact with and analyze in Tableau. You can then create an extract, which will allow you to refresh that data on a schedule, meaning that you can have the most up-to-date data displaying in your dashboards without any manual intervention. So what was the plan? So first off, we needed to refer to the documentation. So starting off with the Tableau documentation, this is some fantastic documentation to get started with. You can clone the SDK from GitHub into your own local development environment. You can then run the simulator, so you're able to debug within your local development environment as well. They also provide a tutorial which takes you through every step of the way, from creating the HTML page to creating all the objects that your users will eventually interact with, to defining the schema, and then getting the data into Tableau so your users can actually interact with it. So moving on to the coronavirus documentation, this gives you all the various bits of information on how to make a successful call to their API. So scrolling down the page, we can see the endpoint, the request headers, the schemas, the various methods, the response codes, and then the filters. So the filters give us a way to filter the responses by specific parameters. So for instance, if we wanted to get data about England, we would use nation as our area type and England as our area name. So the last thing I'm going to cover here is just the example. So where we can see a response within the browser. I'm just going to copy the URL from the Python script on screen, dash that into a new tab, clean it up a little bit so that it actually works. And notice the parameters here. We've got filters set as area type equals nation and area name equals England. So this basically means that we're going to get data back for England here. Great. And then what we have here is the data array with the date and then the associated new cases for that particular date in question. So moving on to development. As with all development, this was an iterative process. We wanted to create a better looking front end using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And James did created a fantastic front end, which will give anyone a great summary of what data is available before they dive into the data in Tableau. We also needed to use Node.js and JavaScript to be able to make calls to the API and eventually create the tables that our end users would be able to interact with. So we had to brush up on that as well. I started off by making a few calls with one area type at a time and steadily built that up. I also created a method to return the relevant values from nested arrays within the JSON response as well. We also created a way to make calls for multiple area names and append that into the same table, which was slightly more difficult than we initially thought, but well, I'll get to that in a bit. Finally, testing to make sure that everything worked as expected before we rolled it out so that anyone can use it without any issues. So on to the challenges. So starting off, there isn't a complete list of metrics available in the API documentation, which was handy. The last time it was updated was back in August 2020. So a way that we're getting around this, it looks like we're able to source new metrics from the manual download page I showed you earlier. So we're currently going through that and testing which ones we can bring into an updated version of the Web Data Connector. Following on from that, we also needed to identify which metrics were applicable for which area type. For example, some metrics are available at nation level, but not at region level. It has taken a bit of trial and error to identify which fields are applicable for which area type, but I think we've pretty much ironed that out now. And as shown previously, we needed to pass in each area name to get data back for each area, for all areas within each area type. Unfortunately, we didn't have a list of area names for each area type, and we couldn't reference this list anywhere within the API itself. Luckily, James had done a lot of work in this area, so we're able to use data we already collected locally. And finally, where to host the web data connector. I mean, one of the goals of this piece of work was to push this out externally so that anyone will be able to use it. So to do so, we created a public GitHub repository, which has a feature called GitHub Pages. This is now hosting the web data connector, so anyone with Tableau, including yourselves, can now access it. Great. So on to how it works. I've left the URL at the top of the screen here, so you can follow along if you want to. So yeah, so let's fire up Tableau, and in the server section, click on More and find Web Data Connector. From here, enter in the URL. And this will direct you to the web page that I was speaking about earlier. Great. So at the top, you'll see the various tables that you'll be able to interact with when you finally get the data. Just down below that, you will see a show or hide data items button, which will give you all of the various data items and data types that you will be expecting to get back as well. Finally, if you click on Get Coronavirus Data, you'll be able to access the data itself. Now this will take you into the data source view. I'm just going to drag in nations just for this example and click on Update Now. This will take a few seconds, and then you will be able to interact with your data there. Now, when I click on Sheet 1, it will automatically create an extract for you. Now let's create a straightforward dashboard. So let's create a band that will shows the total cumulative cases, coronavirus cases as of the 30th of January. So first off, let's drag the date into the filters and filter it on that date. And then let's drag in the total cumulative cases. Finally, let's clean that up a little bit so that our end users know exactly what they're looking at a glance. And just some housekeeping stuff as well. Great. Also, let's rename the sheet so they'll be easier for us to find it when we're building out the dashboard as well. So let's also create another band that has the total new cases as of the 30th of Jan as well. So I'm just going to duplicate the sheet, rename it, and just replace the metric. Great. Okay, so now finally, let's create a bar chart which tracks the total new cases over the past 7 weeks with a moving average. So first off, let's grab the new cases and add that into the row shelf. And then let's drag in the date and drop that into the column shelf and make that an exact date as well. Whilst we're here, we might as well filter the chart to look at the previous 7 weeks. And then let's create a dual axis by duplicating the new cases, creating the dual axis, and then synchronizing both axes. So let's use a bar over here and then change the color so it's a little bit more prominent. And then let's add in a table calculation that calculates the moving average. Great. So now quickly rename the sheet, although it's not entirely necessary. We've only created 3 sheets, and then from here, we can just build out our dashboards quickly. So dragging both bands, do a little bit of housekeeping here. And then dragging the trends as well. So obviously this is a very, very quick, straightforward example of how you can how you can build a dashboard just using the web data connector. Hopefully it illustrates how easy it is for you to use it. So yeah. So with that out of the way, so on to future development. As I mentioned earlier, we do not have a complete list of metrics due to the ever-changing nature of this terrible situation. However, we'll be looking to add in new metrics soon. Also, we have been able to identify which metrics are applicable for which area types. So again, we'll be updating these in due course as well. Currently, we've only been able to account for 4 different area types, and we'll be looking to add those in the future as well, the missing ones in the future as well. And finally, I'm sure there's other things that will crop up along the way, which we'll have to manage as and when needed. So yeah, I think that's it from me. Does anyone have any questions?
Fantastic, thank you, Eric. Really interesting there. I was, yeah, so as Eric said, I kind of was involved with this project, but I can't really take any of the credit. Eric's the brains behind this one. So I'm going to defer to you for a lot of these questions. We've got a few that have come in. The first one coming from Jess just says, "Hi Eric, did you have a background in web development before starting on this?"
A little bit, yeah. So I used to play around just building websites a while ago, but not like anything massive. So I knew a little bit of JavaScript and a bit of Python beforehand.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. But I mean, that's not your job. But no, that's yeah, kind of set you up. Definitely set you up. This is kind of why you played such a pivotal role in this, I think, because you had a little bit of experience before. But as I think you kind of demonstrated, that's not really necessary. I think maybe there were some complexities about this one which might make it a bit harder, but I think you showed it's quite easy to just kind of start on the road with WPC.
Yeah, and also, you know, the documentation that Tableau have, they've got an example which I quickly glanced over within the presentation, but it gives you a really good starting point, you know, and it actually calls out to an example API, something about volcano eruptions, I think. So yeah, you can just get your hands dirty and yeah, play around with that, and that's how I started off.
Cool, fantastic, thank you. We've got a question here from Jason saying, is this GDS compliant? Well, I assume that's the government digital service. Was that about the API, Jason, or specifically about the web data connector? If it's, like, I guess I can answer, if it's the API, government built that. If it's the web data connector, I don't think it's necessarily applicable to what was built. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. And you looked a little confused there as well, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, this is a publicly available API, so you know you could access it. Anyone can access it, and what we've done is just made it a little bit easier for our end users to interact with it in Tableau. That's it.
Cool, fantastic. Yeah, so we've got a couple more questions we'll go through quickly. So one from Chris, it says, how long did it take you to become so familiar with shortcuts and other options within the Tableau user interface?
Not really sure on that one, to be honest. You know, as you build out visualizations, you just kind of pick up shortcuts as and when you build them. So yeah, I've been using Tableau now for about 3-4 years. So yeah.
Cool, fantastic. Yeah, I think it's just a case of try and fail and try.
yeah, exactly.
Cool, awesome. So I think we've got time just for one more before we head on over to Dipesh. So we got, sorry if you explained already, it's from an anonymous person. Does this mean that anyone can build a web data connector for use in Tableau, or would we need to get someone like you to do it for us?
No, anyone can build one. You know, it's got to like when you get started out, download the SDK, go to all the materials, and just have a play. When it comes to hosting it, I think that was a bit of a challenge, but you can do that for free on GitHub Pages, as I mentioned as well. So yeah, get your hands dirty, go for it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think I tried to make one a couple of years ago and failed miserably and just kind of gave up on the situation. And then this opportunity came and we kind of took another look at it. But yeah, I think it was a bit easier this time around.
Yeah.
I think Tableau have improved their documentation.
Yeah, definitely. And what we took like 4 days to push out a first version as well, right? So yeah, that was
great work there. Fantastic. There's a couple of other questions, but I think we've got to move on to Dipesh now. So we'll try and answer those either in the chat now or offline. So yeah, thank you very much, Eric. No, really interesting story. Really great piece of work you did there.
Cheers.
Cool. So yeah, we're moving on over to Dipesh. So yeah, as I said, Dipesh works for Tableau. And he's going to be talking to you about some of the new map features that we've got in version 2020.4. So yeah, over to you, Dipesh.
Hey guys, thank you very much. That was a great little session from James and Eric. So 2024, Tableau has come out with some great features. So I'm just sharing my screen. Can we see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay, cool. It's gone blank on my side. So there we go. So I'm not going to talk through all of the features, but there's a whole host of features, especially around spatial. And I'm going to just drop the link to the web page I'm showing on screen for everybody to kind of go through in more detail. Particularly exciting on the spatial side was the support for map layers. But in addition to the map layers, and that's what I'll demo to you just now, is the support in spatial in prep, the ability to read in spatial data from Redshift, and offline map support for Tableau server. So really exciting and really pushing the boundaries of our capabilities in spatial. So up to now within Tableau, and we brought out new features of spatial calculations in Tableau, but when it came to the visualization end, up to now we're limited to 2 layers, and this is typically achieved in the manner of kind of building 2 charts over here. And you can see here as an example, I've got MSOAs for the UK, very busy, and at the bottom I've got specific points of interest and whatever that might be. So you build two charts and you synchronize those, kind of dual axis, and yeah, like magical while with MSOs. And there you go. So you've got that overlaid each other, and you were basically restricted to 2 layers. Like you see, I've been able to actually have different types of data because I actually concatenated the second data set. And so it kind of seems like you've got a couple of layers, but essentially you've just got 2 layers. So it worked, but let's show you what we can really do in 2020.4. So in 2024, I've looked at some data, US based. So Tableau is a US company. We've got some demo data from the US. And we're looking at kind of hurricanes and kind of puppy shelters. So everyone's getting kind of lockdown puppies, myself included. Mine just walked into the room. But essentially, as an example, we're going to look at puppy shelters that we can potentially go and visit, even though the hurricane season might be up, and we obviously don't want to get caught out with that. As you're probably aware, Tableau has been supported shape files for a little while, so spatial files, and that's just a matter of drag and dropping that data in, the shape file in, and putting that onto a chart. So that's dragging the spatial element, and that's it. Really neatly shows up depending on whichever coloring you're looking to use. Now comes the fun part of actually layering data or non-spatial data on top of that. A couple of ways we can do this. So I've got some data files. In this case, I've got puppy shelters, like I said, and we'll bring that across. Now, this feature was made available where we can actually join spatial and non-spatial data early on. I think it was early on in 2020. So the spatial file, the hurricane shape file, will actually have a geometry field, which is kind of the polygons of the shape that you see in the hurricane areas I showed you earlier. We're then going to look at, well, how do we actually bring in or relate that to data in non-spatial data? Granted, we do have latitude and longitude. So within Tableau, and again, this has come out earlier in Tableau 2020.102, I think it was. And what we're going to do is create a spatial point. So using make point, which is a function in Tableau now, we're going to bring in the latitude and longitude to actually create a spatial data point that can start to intersect with geometry. And when you start to use geometry fields, a new operator becomes available called intersect. And what that's doing is saying, well, build me a join across all of these spatial elements that are in that shapefile and that intersect with my longitude and latitude. You can set that up as a left join, and then that operates pretty much as expected. So we go back to the shapefile, so back to our sheet. And I've done this before, but what we're going to do then is create a calculated field of the same make point. So actually now you're bringing the spatial element into your visualization layer. So I've created this before called puppy shelters. We start to bring that onto our sheet. This is the new part, the fun part, the new feature, which as you start to drag the spatial field onto your sheet, you see this new marks card available, which is layers. Drag it onto there, and immediately you see that that is laid on top of my current map or my shapefile. We can start to play around with that, as in, if you wanted to change the shape, etc., it'd be cool to. I don't have the copy shapes here, but we could have default custom shapes, etc. But if I had puppy shapes, I could put some of those just to make it look that much more appealing. So we'll just stick that with, let's leave it as let's put an asterisk for those and get the name of the actual shelter to denormalize that slightly. Cool. So there we go, layer 1 done. Fairly easy, not having to create 2 charts and then sync the axes. You just got a layer on top. Going back to the data, let's bring in, so obviously when you're going to visit your puppy shelters, picking up a dog, you want to maybe get some food before you get home, maybe a long drive. So let's bring in kind of food stores. So Poblano stores must be a popular place, a kind of whole food type of place within the US. And similarly, we're going to go and look at the drawing here. Now remember, we've got the scenario where puppy shelters is not a spatial file, and nor is the CSV of Poblano stores. So in this scenario, what we're going to do is actually create the geometry field similar to where we did it before, and create the make point on the puppy shelters. So I could have just copied and pasted, but latitude, comma, longitude prompts you quite nicely. There you go. So that's now a spatial field within the left end, and we'll do similar on the right. What we could do here, if we want to look at kind of a radius of points as opposed to looking at just intersects, what we can start to do is actually add another feature that was brought in earlier in 2020 called buffer. Very handy. And then you have the make point within the buffer. So that's longitude, so latitude first, comma, longitude. And in the so doing, what you can actually start to say is actually, well, I actually want that within a specific radius. You can predefine what radius you're looking for. So I'm going to choose, sorry, just got my screen's just frozen. Bear with me. Right, so we're going to do, yeah, maybe a 5-mile radius, yeah, of those intersects. And you could use kilometers as well, it supports both. And then again, left join as well. Don't forget that intersect. There you go. So going back into the Viz layer, we've now got a geometry for these locations. And now, again, like we did with the puppy shelters, we look at the Poblano stores, something I created before. I created a make point to create a spatial point for Poblano stores. Like we did before, dragging that up. Remember, before we were limited to 2 layers, then we've got a 3rd layer. I'll just change the color on that one so we can see that a bit better. The screen and get the store unique ID. Let's bring that into detail. And so if we can see that a bit better, let's zoom in on that area. So we can start to see where we've got, oops, the intersect between the stores in that area within a 5-mile radius. We can start to see quite clearly where those points are. What I've done is it combined the existing buffer and make point functionality that we've had for a while in Tableau, now bringing in layers. Now we're not restricted by these layers, so we can add as many as you want. And equally, if you actually want to actually switch them off, you've got this new ability to actually hide or view layers, which is incredibly handy, especially if you're kind of testing things out. So that's me. I didn't want to take up too much time, but I was really keen to show you the new layers functionality within Tableau, which I'm particularly excited about. I have a huge number of clients who actually ask for this. I think Jason and Chris on the call here are particularly interested in mapping, so hopefully you enjoy that, guys. So any questions, please feel free to ask.
Awesome, thank you, Dipesh. Yeah, really, really cool functionality. It's like the amount of times I've had queries of people kind of saying, can't we just put like another layer on top of this? Like, we need these boundaries and we need these points and these points and these points. It's like, well, no. So yeah, so that's going to be really cool.
Exactly, it does make life very easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, looks like we have a question in the Q&A that was, yeah, quite an interesting one from Chris. Is there a limit to the number of layers you can add?
Thanks, Chris. There isn't a limit, but like everything, there probably is a limit, as in a sensible limit. So in all conceivable purposes, there isn't, but I'll come back to you if there is a specific hard limit. Yeah, but so being sensible, there isn't a defined limit that I'm aware of.
Cool, fantastic. So I don't think we have any other questions in the chat. If anyone thinks of anything, feel free to drop one in now. But I think, so I'm just going to share my screen for the last couple of minutes. Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you, especially to all of the presenters that spoke today for sharing their stories. Really interesting stuff there, a lot of learning, a lot of stuff to take away for me anyway. I wanted to thank all of you guys for coming along and listening and participating. Like I said earlier, we want to start hosting a few more of these over the course of the year. They're not all going to take the form of kind of just guest speakers and presentations and things like that. We're going to try and change the format up and have some more interactive elements and things like that. Yeah, so if you were interested in speaking at one of the next events or presenting, or if you were interested in what we're doing in the public sector user group and you wanted to join the team, please feel free to contact myself or Mike Henry. You can see our email addresses on the screen there. And if you're on Twitter, you can feel free to drop us a message on that as well. I thought I'd just remind people that we have a Tableau community forum set up for the purpose of this group as well. I think so. We'll drop Eric's all right with it, and the other guys. If we drop the slides from today's session, and Eric, you had your workbook that you built in that session. Obviously, the Danny and Martin, I don't think you can share your workbooks, but if we dropped anything in there from today that anyone might find interesting, and kind of it's a useful space where we drop updates about future events, we look for speakers and try and build up some collaboration across the public sector. So yeah, unless anyone else had any questions, I can't see any coming in. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time. Thank you to all the presenters.
Thanks all. Brilliant.